Hey everybody, I'm Melanie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm the owner of Lost and Found and I'm so excited that you're here today. We're going to do something just a little bit different. I want to share with you a little bit more of my own home. I've had you guys asking to see some, and so specifically in today's video, I want to show you my favorite pieces of antique furniture. I'm a big believer in mixing old and new in your home decor, and so I want to show you the pieces in my home that I love, tell you the stories of them, and I think we're gonna have a really great time. Okay, so I know I said furniture, but I want to show you this because we're already out here before we go inside. This right here is actually one of my favorite antique pieces that I have. It is an old goat cart. And I've bought and sold several of these over the years in my antique booth, but this one was given to me by a very dear friend. She had it on her front porch, and when she moved, she didn't want to take it with her and decided to let me take it. So it hangs out here on my front porch. It's got this gorgeous fern in it, and I just love it so much. It's a little rickety, it doesn't roll quite well, but that's okay. It just kind of hangs out here. So even before we get inside, that was something I wanted to share with you guys. Okay, so we'll start right here in my entryway. This piece, I love it so much. And you can tell that it is a large cabinet. I'm gonna open it up to show you guys just how much stuff it holds. So that's like all of our photo albums and extra picture frames and stuff like that that we have. We got high school yearbooks down there. Our cat is maybe gonna try to go climb in. But the story of this piece is it is actually probably, maybe not the first, but one of the first kind of true antiques that I purchased from an antique store. So when my first son was not even a year old, I kind of hatched this plan to paint a bunch of furniture and kind of create this pretty sale in my yard. We called it the Cottage sale. And so we lived in this historic home and we set up all this furniture and staged all this stuff in our yard, and we hosted this weekend sale. All of the money that I took from that sale, I took it down to Jennifer's Antiques in Conway, Arkansas, and I bought this piece of furniture. I had been looking at it for months. So that's kind of the fun story of it. At one point in time, it held all of my china and like serving pieces. Anytime you can find a great storage piece that you can hide stuff in, that's perfect. But I just love the patina on this. I love the age and the character. A lot of times people think that I painted it. I did not paint it. I got it just like this. And so I don't think that this is the original finish on it. I think somebody painted it and kind of distressed it. But I love the chippiness, and it's just a great piece to have. So one thing I want to show you guys is the inside of this piece is lined with very old newspaper. You might be able to tell right there. It says the Republic, St. Louis, January 1903. How cool is that? Okay, so this I think is actually the first antique piece of furniture that I ever bought, and I don't even know exactly what it is. It's kind of a funky piece. I think this door was maybe added on later. I'll show you guys what we have inside here. It stores kids' craft supplies currently. It has been for me a TV stand. It has been a table in between two chairs in my living room. It served as a nightstand for a long time, but I bought it back before my husband and I were even married. I was single and I was at a training event in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and there was a lady there. I believe the name of her store was called The Junk Lady, and she just had some incredible pieces. I needed some furniture, didn't have much furniture, and I think I paid like maybe 30 bucks for this. It is super sturdy and solid, and I just think the character on it is great. So when we moved into this house, I needed something to kind of tuck into this corner. It was just a dead corner, and so I had a couple of them to display, and I thought this tucked over here just worked really well. And then of course I always need a place to just stash stuff. So. All right, so the story on this piece here is that it's a Hungarian pine old side table. And we found it in Eureka Springs, Arkansas when we moved here about 3 years ago. So when we moved to this house, I took the opportunity to change out a lot of our decor. Like, we were literally throwing furniture in the trash as we were moving because it was so worn out. It was falling apart. And so we purchased some new upholstered furniture, and I needed a table to tuck here in the corner between our couch and our 2 chairs. And I looked and looked and looked and just couldn't find anything that I was really excited about. And then my husband and I were in Eureka Springs for a couple days, popped into this cute little store that was actually going out of business, and they had this table. So the patina on it is fantastic. I love that it's got that kind of raw pine look, and I was wanting to have more lighter wood in this space. I believe I paid $75 for it. I think originally it was a couple hundred, so not a terrible price, but it's one of the more recent pieces that we've added to our home. Okay, so this piece you may have seen in the background of some of my videos, and I've had it on my blog before or shared photos, and everybody always kind of goes crazy when they see it. So I do absolutely love this piece. It's another pine piece. I'm a big fan of old pine. This piece is probably the most expensive piece of antique furniture that I've purchased, and I believe I paid around $450 for it. I bought it as a Christmas gift to myself several years ago when I was a vendor. I had a booth at one of my booths back in Texas that I had for a long time. Another vendor had this piece. It was just absolutely gorgeous. I'd had my eye on it for a long time, and I had a really, really solid few months of sales, and so I decided to treat myself to this piece of furniture as a gift. So what I love about it is all of the carved detail that it has, and again, it has a ton of storage. So up here, we have some of the china that I have. I inherited like 3 sets of china from my grandmother. So this is where some of it is. This is a dessert china that I inherited from her. That was her grandmother's, I believe. It is Austrian. It's very, very old. It's beautiful. And I love that I have a place that I can put it where you can see it a little bit through the glass. And then down here is all the rest of our china. Yeah, I know, I'm that crazy lady that still has like a bunch of china. So it is a piece that really is functional for us. But I think it's also just adds a lot of character to this area of our kitchen. I'm not sure about the age on it. It does have what it looks like to be hand carved dovetail joints on the back, which if those, yes, people can kind of recreate that look if they want to make it look old, but if that's authentic, that really adds some age to this piece. Again, I don't know the history of it. The seller that sold it to me didn't know the history of it, but I do think by several of the details that I've been able to find on it that it's got some pretty good age. So I know this last piece is one that you guys have probably seen a lot of. It's the backdrop to a lot of my videos just because the light is really good here in this front room, but I want to show you a little bit more of it and tell you the story because I think this is honestly the best story of any of the antique furniture that I have. So this is an old oak. I think it was originally a wardrobe or an armoire. We have turned it into a bookcase, but it is from Paris, France, which is pretty amazing. Here's the story about how I found this piece. Back in January of 2020, right before the pandemic started, my husband and I went to Tulsa to go watch a basketball game. And what I always do when I'm somewhere and I've got some extra time is I Google, if there's some antique stores or some flea markets around me. And literally like 2 miles from our hotel where we were staying, there was an antique store. And so we went, and it turned out that this was not any regular antique store, that this was a store where the gentleman who had owned the store had been going to France for the past 30 years, filling up shipping containers and then importing back the most amazing French antiques that you can imagine. And he was in literally like the final days of a 2-year liquidation. And I just kind of happened to stumble in. So much of what he already had was already sold, and it was kind of the dregs of what was left. But even the dregs of what he had left were still absolutely amazing. So this cabinet was one of the things he had left. It originally had a top, and the top he had sold to someone else. These right here are large brass hinges, and so it originally had doors that he had sold to someone else, but that was okay, didn't bother me. When I asked him what his price would be on this, I was absolutely astounded when he gave me a price of $50 for this cabinet. So as you can imagine, even though I didn't have any way to bring it back home with me, I paid him the $50 for it. And we drove back a few weekends later and we picked it up from him. I bought several other things from him, and then I was actually going to go back one more time. He had another gigantic Welsh pine cabinet that he was going to sell me for $300. And that was literally March 2020, and everything shut down, and he was out of there by the end of March. And so it still haunts me, like wondering what happened to the rest of his amazing stuff. But this bookshelf has been a great storage piece for us. Like I said, we did add the shelves, and they're just pieces of thick pine or thick oak, oak pieces that we stained dark to match. There was already kind of the shelving brackets installed in the side, and it's not perfectly displayed, but that's okay. We're a book family. We love the books. There's also some of my kids' art, some of their pictures. This space in here is kind of a library space for us, so it works for our needs, even if it isn't all completely pretty decorated. But I absolutely love this piece, and I can tell you that it's from Paris because it does have a stamp on the back of it, which is pretty absolutely incredible for $50. So it's really a treasure. All right, guys, so before I sign off on this video, I want to share with you just a couple tips if you are currently decorating your own home, or maybe looking to change up your look, or just have some new furnishings there, and if you are wanting to consider bringing in some vintage and antique pieces. Okay, so tip number one is that it is completely okay to mix antique and vintage furniture with new furniture. In fact, every room in my home that I showed you that has an antique piece of furniture also has completely new furniture in the same space. So I try to make sure that I keep the wood tones similar. They don't even have to be the exact same, but similar in the rooms that they're in. They can vary from room to room, and they do throughout my home. But if I can keep the wood tones of the older furniture and the newer furniture similar, then it can really all work together. And I think that actually creates a much more kind of interesting collected look for your room anyway. Okay, tip number two, you're gonna have to be patient. If you're wanting to use antique or vintage furniture in your decorating, it just takes some time to find what you want to find, and sometimes to find that perfect piece. So case in point, we've been living in this house for 3 years. I'm currently in my master bedroom. You can probably tell it's pretty empty. I'm still working on it. It's taking me a while to find the things I want to find. The living room that I shared with you guys today, it was probably a good 2 years before I really felt like that space was pulled together. And it would have been easier just to go to Rooms to Go and buy a whole suite of stuff. But I just feel like that's really boring, and that's not my style. So it takes a while if you're using collected and antique pieces, because you're just gonna have to wait until you spot that perfect one. Okay, tip number three that goes along with that is you've got to keep your eyes open all the time. So remember the story about being in Tulsa for the basketball game? I wasn't there to shop for furniture, but I'm so glad that I went to that antique store because I got that amazing $50 huge oak bookshelf. So you just have to always be on the lookout. Anytime you're somewhere and you've got some extra time in a new city or a new place where you're, just pop in and look and see, and look frequently. In thrift stores and antique malls in your area, you're gonna have to go back repeatedly and continue to look because the inventory is gonna be constantly changing. You may be there 1 week and there may be nothing, and you may go back the next week and you finally see the perfect piece. So you gotta stay persistent, gotta keep at it, and you've always gotta keep your eyes open. Okay, tip number 4 is a lot of times antique pieces of furniture can be used in different ways than they were used at the time when they were being produced. Like that little chest that I have that I'm not even really sure what it is. It has worked for me in so many different spaces. And so antique furniture, many of those pieces can be really versatile. So sometimes you have to think outside of the box. If you find a piece that you love that is a dresser, say, well, maybe you need a TV stand, and maybe that beautiful vintage dresser or buffet can be turned into a TV stand. So be willing to kind of switch up how the furniture is being used. And even from time to time, you know, over the course of you having it, you may wind up using it for different purposes in your own home. All right, my last tip, and this is for you guys that love this look and are wanting to kind of create this in your own home, but maybe you've got little kids and you're thinking, I can't have antique furniture in my house. So here's what I do and what I've always done. Our upholstered furniture, I always invest in quality, new upholstered furniture, because if I don't, it's gonna get ripped to shreds by my children. So the pieces that I buy that are antique, I look for sturdy pieces, but pieces that are already kind of beat up. And so I'm not buying, you know, fine Chippendale dressers or whatever, you know, the really, really nice high-end stuff. I am buying old pieces, but I'm buying the ones that are already a little primitive, already a little beat up. And so, you know, when they get whacked with that lightsaber for the 10th time, which, hello, that's happened in my house, it's not gonna hurt it, right? Because your home has to be livable. You want it to be beautiful, but it also has to be livable for your family. I have 3 boys, ages 15, 13, and 10. So my home has to be a place where they can feel comfortable, where they can feel safe, where they can roughhouse and be themselves. So if that's you and you're in that same boat, then perhaps consider antique furniture that has more of that primitive look and pieces that aren't your everyday workhorse pieces that aren't being constantly opened and closed with the doors, you know, that you're constantly open and closing because they're going to wear out, or pieces that are constantly being sat on by your children. Your workhorse furniture, invest in new furniture, and save the fun antique pieces for your accent pieces. Okay, so that's it today. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing a little bit more of my home. I enjoyed sharing it with you. It's always a little nerve-wracking because it is just a real house, you guys, and I did pick things up a little bit, but who knows, you may have spotted some stuff, a dog running through or some kids' toys under a chair that maybe I missed because, you know, us YouTubers, like, we're just real people. This is my real house. But I hope that maybe you enjoyed getting to see it, and maybe that inspired you, gave you some creative ideas, what you can do in your own space. I appreciate you guys joining me so much, and I'll see you in about a week.